children got rhythm. All got children got swing. Maybe haven't got money.
I mean, to tell the story of how blacks and Jews meet up and fall out through pop music, it's a big story, and it's a complicated story because it's one that is full of stories of great harmony, of great empathy, but on the other hand, it's also full of stories of conflict, of exploitation. I think you have to look at it by example. There are lots of examples of Jewish women in the early part of the 20th century who were exoticized as a kind of Africanized, exotic, or Oriental figure.
When considering female Jewish performers that performed as black characters, somebody like Libby Holman or Sophie Tucker or Fanny Brice, who the big race question nuances dramatically how we think about femininity, Jewishness, performance. For example, Sophie Tucker, who was billed as the world-renowned coon shouter. She actually performed in blackface, but really wanted to get away from it. Her closest both friend and also her maid and her right-hand woman was a black woman. They actually had a very close personal relationship, but it was still mediated by race and class, a hierarchy. But that doesn't mean that the friendship was totally disingenuous. And within the context of that friendship, Sophie Tucker was introduced to the song that became her signature piece. Some of These Days, written by Shelton Brooks.
It happens down through the teens and 20s of African-American songwriters who are being almost required to participate in writing songs that today reach us as, if not out-and-out racist, as at least insulting on some level to African-Americans.
Lovey Joe, the ever-loving man from way down home in Birmingham. He can do some loving and some loving show. And when he starts to love me, I just holler more. He's my...
You know, Fanny Brice is a really interesting figure because she's someone who kind of passes through the use of blackface briefly early in her career, but doesn't use it constantly. So when Fanny Brice appears in the Ziegfeld Follies in 1910, she knows she needs a big number. The Ziegfeld Follies is a really important way to make your mark on New York theater culture. And so she went to Will Marion Cook, who was a really important African-American songwriter at the time, and says, give me something black enough, a little bit of syncopation, a little bit of raciness in the lyrics, and give me something that I can make a hit out of. And she asks him to write her what at the time would have been known as a coon song. And he writes her lyrics for a song called Lovey Joe, music's by Joe Jordan.
Fanny Brice's first big success on Broadway was the song Lovey Joe, which was written originally in Black English. And the stage manager resisted this and said, you have to sing this in, quote, proper English. And she said no. And she decided to do it as it was written, and the crowd adored it, loved it.
Fanny, sing the song. Now, let's go.
When Jews talked about their natural kinship with African Americans, one of the modes of describing that kinship was very often the idea that synagogue music shared a relationship to African American blues, that it literally had to do with the writing and performance of certain musical notes. Usually it was more diffuse than that. It was this notion that Jews were good at getting suffering into music.